English here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm doing another interview with Matt Boughton, and I'm going to ask Matt Boughton some questions. Is that all right with you, Mr. Boughton?
Absolutely fine, Matthew. It's good to be here.
Are we going to have more funding for schools and colleges?
I hope so, and it's something that we really need to, because we've got great schools and we've got great colleges around our area, and they do so much for the community. And a lot of people move into places like Tunbridge and the villages nearby because they want to go to the excellent schools and colleges. But we need to make sure that just because we've got some of the best in the country at the moment, they stay some of the best in the country as well. So it's something that I've been saying for a long time, particularly to the government who provides the funding for schools and colleges, that they need to invest more in our area. So I really hope so.
Because I've been to Nexus, going to Scott Gerrard. He's the head teacher for Nexus, and I asked him, is he going to receive any more funding for his school and stuff?
Nexus is a really, really good school, and we're lucky to have them, and they do so much good work for so many people.
And I can ask you about the coalition. Because that is going around now, because the news media and the BBC now and stuff, and across the country, well, how they can pay their bills and wages and stuff, and food shortages and stuff. How are you going to respond to the cost of living price in this area?
So as the council, we've got a really important job here, because a lot of people come to the council first for help with bills and with money, and sometimes for paying their council taxes. We of course have to collect the tax as well. Now what we've done is we've allocated some money which is going to be used specifically for vulnerable people in the community, particularly as we get into winter and it's getting much colder. And the way we're doing that is through two different routes. The first route is we're looking at very specific schemes that can help very specific groups of people, because what we don't want to do, given that we don't have an unlimited pot of money, is to make sure that we're not helping those most vulnerable. There are some people who are very lucky because they're able to afford some of the measures that you need to have in place, such as good insulation in your homes, for example, but there are a lot of people who can't do that. So the way we're doing it is we're making sure that we're really focusing on people who are affected, and then we're using all of the levers that we can to make sure that they get the help that they need. One of the ways that we've done that is something called the Coats for Kids scheme. So what we've done is we've been able to get coats, winter coats, for hundreds of children across the community who aren't from particularly affluent backgrounds, but we know that they need to be warm. They need to be warm at school, they need to be warm at home, they need to be warm between getting home to school. And by being able to use a bit of funding that we've got, we've been able to allocate that to the children in need, and that's been really successful. The other way that we're doing this, we're working with a lot of organisations, and we're working with a lot of the churches around here who are obviously providing warm spaces. We're working with a lot of businesses as well who are able to give some money that they get into their businesses and put it back in the local community. And we're also looking at ways throughout the council in which we can make sure that all of the things in life that we use are as affordable as possible to people. So for example, we have just reduced charges for people who are particularly vulnerable for collecting their bulky waste, for example. So there are lots of little things that we can do, as well as obviously making sure people keep as much money as they possibly can.
Before I move on to the other questions, I want to get your opinion on the side of things. So Keir Starmer, the Labour leader of the Labour Party, he said he going to abolish the Lords, the House of Lords. How can you respond to that?
I mean, it will be quite a different change in the way that our laws are made if the House of Lords is abolished. I mean, the concept of the House of Lords as it's currently structured is alien if we were to think of creating it again. I think the question for me has been, if you abolish the House of Lords, do you replace it, or do you just do away with it completely? if you do away with it completely, then how does that impact our ability to hold our MPs to account?
Yes.
Because some people would say that MPs collectively aren't perhaps the best decision makers, and there have been a lot of examples of where Lords have actually asked them to look again at different elements of laws in recent years. So it's an interesting proposal, but I think from my perspective, I want to see what his alternative is before confirming that that's a good idea or not.
Yes. I heard that NatWest is closing. How can you respond to that?
Oh, it's such a shame, to be honest, that NatWest are closing, and sadly we've seen it obviously with Lloyds as well and other banks, and lots of the smaller villages, places like Borough Green, for example, used to have 2 banks, now they haven't got any. So it's a real problem. I bank at NatWest myself, and I use the Tunbridge branch when I need to, and I'll now have to go further. I mean, banks will say that it's unaffordable for them to stay open, and from our point of view, it's a case of, well, can the banks work together so that perhaps one of them stays, but you can access your services whichever bank that you're with? And I don't think we've seen enough of that in recent years, and the consequence of that is that more and more communities are going without a bank. Now, we're lucky that a couple of them still remain on the high street, and we might want to look at changing our accounts over to those banks if we can, but it's such a shame, because banks have been an integral part of the high street for decades.
Yeah. And also like Edenbridge, well, because my dad works in a care home in Edenbridge. He works in a Athey Manor care home.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
And he's a chef and stuff. And in Edenbridge, isn't like much there and stuff. And I'm not that sure if Lloyds Bank had closed, and I'm not that sure and stuff. And how can you respond to that? How can you like get more like shops, like more small business into like Edenbridge? Well, not just Tunbridge, like Edenbridge. Well.
I think towns like Tunbridge and Edenbridge and some of the smaller places have got a real challenge, because of course we're seeing more and more shops leave high streets than we have coming in. And I think there's 2 ways, and you speak to businesses about what the ways to resolve this are. And of course there are 3 major expenditure items are staff. Well, of course you need staff to run the shop, so that's always going to remain. Then you've got the cost of rent, which obviously is a private arrangement between the landlord and the organisation that are going in. And then business rates that they have to pay on the premises. And the annoying thing with business rates is that they're set by the government, albeit collected by the council. So we have to send out letters that say Tunbridge are more in demand that you pay X amount of money, but then pass that straight on to the government. Now, I've always said that it would be so much easier if councils were allowed to set business rates and then preferably keep the money as well, because then you can make sure that actually you're getting something back for the rates. So if you pay business rates on a particular property, we can identify that yes, we've spent money on this particular solution. And I think that way you encourage more and more businesses to invest in the high street, particularly those smaller high streets than Tunbridge, because Tunbridge is actually doing relatively well, I would argue.
Yes.
But of course you've mentioned Edenbridge, Matthew, and I think there are many other examples. I mentioned Borough Green, of communities that historically have had such an active and thriving high street, but how can we better make sure that there are more and better shops and more employment opportunities for people in those areas?
Where is our new post office?
The post office is a nightmare, to be honest. At the moment it's in the castle, but the castle one isn't much more than the counter. It's much better than nothing. I was pleased because the council owns the castle that we were able to encourage them to come forward with that. And as I say, it's performing an option, and it's had some problems, but now it's working again, which is really welcome. The post office has been really difficult to deal with in terms of what the longer term solution is, and we've given them many options about lists of premises, but it's a bit like Goldilocks, to be honest. It's too big, it's too small, it's not quite the right size. We're just waiting for the perfect shop to come forward. Now we think that we have presented some which would be perfect, but the post office themselves, who are obviously sort of a separate organisation, haven't gone forward at the pace in which we want, because this has been nearly a year now that it's been sort of rumbling on, and it's not really good enough. So we're continuing to do everything we can. We spend a lot of time and a lot of energy, because I think, hey look, if Tunbridge doesn't have a post office in the town centre, then what hope does that give for other places?
Yeah. And how people can to like post like a packet
Yes.
to the post office, and if you don't have a post office
Exactly.
and stuff.
And that's why it's, I mean, fortunately we can do some of that at the castle, but we can't do everything. So it's all about making sure that they invest in the long-term future of the post office. That's they've got to do that. They've said all the right things, the organisation, but I don't really care what they say. I care what they do, and we need to see far more of that coming forward than we've had so far.
Do you enjoy being a councillor of this, like Tunbridge and Morlin and Edinburgh Borough Council as a councillor?
I do. It's challenging, but it's good fun, and you can actually achieve a lot for the community. And ultimately, it's what motivates you in the morning. Why do you get out of bed? Why do you go to work? And for me, the ability to just help make people's lives better and help contribute something to our community is great. And at some point, people might vote me out, or I'll have enough. And if they do, I just want to be able to turn around and say I did good stuff in my time, and that's why I enjoy it.
Because on BBC South East, they raise some money for children in need. Like really proud of them. They help people in need and stuff, and people sometimes need help sometimes.
And that's the thing, it's all about helping people, so that's what I like to do, and it's a different way of helping people, as you say, and obviously children in need is great, and they do such amazing work.
What is your favourite food?
I eat far too much food by the size of me, that's for sure, but I do like to go out with my friends for good curry occasionally. Nothing too spicy or too hot, so I'm a bit mild, but a good curry on a Friday night, that's perfect for me.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
So in my spare time, and a lot of my friends laugh at this, I'm a football referee, and so I go round the county and sometimes beyond refereeing football matches. Now, the nature of the job means I don't have very much spare time, but when I do, as somebody said, that you get shouted at all week, and you spend your Sunday mornings and sometimes most of the weekend as well being shouted at on a football pitch. So it's perhaps very good training, but I do enjoy it. I've done it for 15 years, and someone's got to do it, and I just happen to enjoy it, to be honest.
Do you think that England will win the World Cup this year?
Yes, we will. We've got to be positive. We scored 6 goals yesterday, so why not?
Yep. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you, Matthew.
That's right.
I hope it's